Well, started modelling, crikey, it must have been, my father bought my brother and I trying trains and that for Christmas, and it was always a great delight. Christmas Day, I remember one of the war trains with the searchlight and rockets, and then building it out. Father built me my first layout, which was on casters and went under the bed, and then we pulled it out. And then I decided that I would want to make a model of a prototype, and I at that time lived in Chesham, and they still had steam engines and diesel shunting in the yard at Chesham, and I tried to recreate it, but with Hornby points all the wagons used to buffer lock, and so that was quite a bit of frustration. Then I was at that age, I was still too young to join a model railway club. At the age of 16 I got into the Amersham Model Railway Club, and that really was fantastic. All the people's knowledge, their enthusiasm, they were there to help you. Yes, you got the mickey taken out of you, and when you produced something you had to have a fairly stiff back to walk in with a model and let them criticise it, but the criticism was encouraging, and that's the key to it. And I would certainly, if you're starting off, join a club where you get the experience. It's the experience and helping you out with problems that's the key to basically enjoying the hobby. Otherwise, if you're just on your own, it's like one fish in a pond. You're not going to do a lot. So that was the sort of my initiation. When I then became apprentice later on, about 18, 19, at British Aluminium, and again it's meeting the right people. We had 3 engineers that worked in a very dark workshop, and they were past retirement age then, but they were interested in railways. Normally they didn't speak to people. You would walk in, hand your job in, they would do it. 2 or 3 weeks later you go and pick it up. But because of my interest, they sort of took me under their wing. They very kindly taught me turning on lathes, what size drills to use, what speeds for different metals, and this is not written down in the book. It's the sort of thing that would be passed on to you by these people. So again, very lucky indeed. Having that knowledge and all the equipment that was available, I started turning my own wheels and trying to machine things, and at that time was also the infancy of P4. Studio Lith were the company that supplied mainly the parts, and they kept doing revised versions every other week, so you got used to something. 2 weeks later you couldn't get it because a revised version was available. So it was a bit frustrating, but eventually we cracked it, and I think Mike Sharman was probably the biggest success for me because he made wheels, and the key to modelling is wheels. I then did a couple of P4 layouts which went around the circuits, Bevet and Beverleys, based on London North Western steam engines, and I built most of the stuff with it because the chairman for Amersham Model Railway Club was a keen North Western fan, and he had a fantastic collection. So it's all linked in together. So from P4, I did that for many years, became the editor for Model Railways, but the whole of that time it were always peering at photographs. Was that thing right? Could that be correct? And there was always some little smart ass would come along and say, "Oh, you got that wrong, mate." And I said, "Well, where's the photo?" "Oh, no, you got it wrong." So it was always just that grey area. When I was the editor of Model Railways, a kit came in from RJX Model Railways for a Class 90. At the same time, I'd seen a model built by Brian Daniels, and the model was of a Class 37 in O gauge, and it was absolutely superb. And say at the same time this Class 90 kit came in, and the secretary or publicity officer for the guild was a lovely lady called Janet Strike, and her father worked on the railways. He was a driver at Euston, and I said to her, "Is there any chance you can get me, with the aid of your father, to photograph a Class 90? She said, "Yeah." Anyway, it was all fitted up. I went up to Euston, and we photographed the 90. So I knew on that day those photographs I took and the model that subsequently came from it was absolutely spot on, and that was an absolute revelation. And plus the fact I wanted to do something different from Brian. He did diesels. He's only just recently, in the last year or so, done electrics, but I've done electrics quite a lot of my life, and I had a outdoor layout in my house in Peterborough which ran in the garden, and that was electrics. So we're up to the current day. Following on from being an editor, I became a model maker. Well, I didn't become a model maker, I started making models. And again, it's the right person at the right time. And another fantastic person, Dennis Lovett. He was working for Network Rail and latterly then went on to Intercity. And he had a model made for the Queen Mother with a Class 90 in a case. And he said, "It's absolutely atrocious, Dave. Do you think you can help me out and do something?" So I said, "How long have we got?" He said, 3 days. So I said, "Fine, see what we can do." Anyway, we managed to produce the model, and I think it was named the Girls Brigade. So off it went. And that was the start of my career, really, with building models for the railway companies. And subsequently my name was passed on to other railway companies, and I've done work for quite a few of them over the years. And that's put me in a very good situation, because I can get drawings. So when they gave me a model to do for a specific loco, I would also ask for something else for me, and 9 times out of 10 those drawings would appear as well. And the key to doing good models is having the right information, having the right drawings. Now all of my layout now, this has been built over the last 20 years now, since I've been here, 23 years, is all modern image. And with the advent in the last 4 or 5 years of 3D printing, there isn't anything I can't build now. Very fortunate, my wife does Corel Draw on the computer, and she does all the drawings for any new wagons or locos or any jobs we have to do for the railways. That's then turned into an etched brass, and then I do the masters for the white metal castings. I have a machine, a small Taranti machine, so I do the white metal castings for that. Recently last 5 years, I met Simon from King's Lynn. His code name is Simon BR Blue. A lot of people have seen his work, and he has now probably done 20 odd wagons for me, plus other accessories. He's done some cement wagons, he's done some refuse containers, all things which really only lend themselves to 3D printing. You would struggle, I think, to do them as an etch or even as a casting. They'd be very heavy. So the layout now really is trains that are running currently on the railways. I do an awful lot of work for GB Rail Freight, and again they very kindly pass on drawings to me. And there's another side to that as well, is that quite a few of the model companies sometimes struggle to get information. They come on to me, yes, I pass on my contacts, and then they continue with the people getting the information from them. At the end of the day, most of the railway companies want a model of their product that's accurate, and if they can supply the right drawings, the information, the colour schemes and that, they know that the model's going to come out right. It's most people are there to help each other. My interests are across the board, so I love diesel. Well, they're all 66s or 67s. There's not a lot to shout about now. I still like the electrics, but again, it's you can only have electrics really on mainline trains, going from one yard to another yard, whereas the diesels can shunt yards and you can do trip working with them. Most of the layout is, I would say 90% of it's freight. This came about with Thrall, he'd always came to me and said, could you produce models of the wagons, of our new fleet of wagons in 7mm. The idea being that they could go to an exhibition for the railway industry, and on the stand have these different models. So if a customer came up, perhaps wanted to move elephants, then we'd have a wagon here that would accommodate that, or if we had another wagon that wanted to do cocaine or feathers or something like that, then they could do that, right through to steel. So the customer then could see the vehicles that their product would be carried in. As a result of that, I did a number of commissions for Thrall. One was a lovely one. I did 9 wagons based on drawings from Poland, that only one person in the factory spoke English. We only had fax in those days, and the exhibition was in Germany, which was run by a Dutch firm, and my wife had to fly the models out to the exhibition because we couldn't freight them. So that was quite good, and that all came about, and that was 4 different languages, so that was excellent. So yes, it's there's been a lot of good fun over the years. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and to say that I've done 35 years of basically enjoying myself, fantastic. When I bought this property, which is situated next to East Coast Main Line, so it has a massive appeal, and it also had 4 or 5 what then were stables and sheds. And I managed to bring a piece of layout from my old house, about 20 feet long, and that went into 2 of the stables. We punched holes in the wall, and we put a box outside in the paddock, which was covered over, and that gave me a circuit for running. I then built a well to go underneath the layout, because at some stage I might get old, and it'd be much easier just walking under the layout than trying to crawl. You see, funny as ever, you go to these layouts of people and you see 70 and 80-year-old people trying to crawl under a layout. It's very indignant, very indignant. And then we did the base, and eventually I put the building on the base. So not most people start with the building. I started with the layout and then put a building on top of it. Then we opened up this side of it. It's all based on basically 2 running tracks, and everything else is feeding it. Some of these trains are 16 feet long, not easy to hide a 16-foot train in your pocket. I'm up to about 23 trains now, so it's always a constant fight with storage. So we have 2 main running lines, and then the rest of it feeds both sides. But key to it are 2 reverse curves, and they were put in right at the beginning. Again, one of the things you see is you go to a layout and there's the same 4 trains running on the upside, and there's same 4 trains running on the downside, and all day long, and after a while it does get boring. With this layout you can start off with 1 train in the yard, you can take it through the up line, reverse it, have it running on the down line, reverse it, put it back in the storage sidings, and so that there's no limitations, everything will run everywhere. When I came to DCC, this really fulfilled the plan, because it is now just a go anywhere railway. Nothing is banned. You don't need complicated wiring. Literally the trains will go anywhere. You can have head-on collisions if you so choose, like the Addams family. Wouldn't recommend it, because it's difficult to get the explosives these days. But DCC was never really going to go DCC because of all the stock I had. But fortunately my wife bought me the DCC with the help of Mr. Besant, who still haven't fixed in for that one. And to be honest with you, it's been an absolute godsend, fantastic, and I would recommend anybody go DCC. Even if you start off with 2 foot of track on a piece of board, the enjoyment you can get out of all the sounds and the movement of the loco, it's just it's a whole new dimension. Absolutely superb.
Was the layout inspired by any prototype?
No, this is basically just train set. There's no getting away from it. And funny enough, Pete's doing a layout at the moment. He's doing bits and pieces on his layout, and we chat quite a lot. And I always think it's harder to do a fictitious layout than it is to do a model of prototype. With the prototype, you can go up there on the day, photograph it, go home, and you can reproduce it. On a fictitious layout, it has to look right, and you have to balance it. And you can put some things in it and you go, oh no, it's not right, even though it probably is. But because it's fictitious, it has to balance right. So I think it's harder to do a fictitious layout. But at the end of the day, this is just something to show the trains off, really. So the tracks, I've got the track right now. The signalling is pretty much there, although I have got to put these lovely new dapple ground signals coming. I've got to put some of those in. The scenery is at a certain level. I'm very fortunate with this layout. It's broken up into about 4 units, so you can work on one unit and bring it up to a level, and then you go on to the next unit and you can bring that up, and so you work your way around it until you come back to the original one, and then you can lift that to the next level. Some people's layouts, you walk into a big room and it's all there on show, and you can see everything at once. Now that's a much harder project, I think, to do.